My new book, Battling Boy, is geared toward a younger audience than maybe you would normally think of for comic book readers. But it's accessible to anybody really who's into fantasy, adventure, mythology, coming of age, these kind of things. So I just really tried to throw in everything I love about comics and mythology and literature. Try to do a different kind of comic book than what you would normally expect if you pick up the latest Batman or latest X-Men or whatever. Something new, something different. Well, in Battling Boy, the boy his father is a war god. He's not quite specified. He's not Thor, he's not Hercules, he's a war god. Sends the boy on his mission. He's 13. He's turning 13, so he's that's sort of this classic age of like a turning from childhood to early adulthood. And when Dad sends him down on his mission, his labor, he gives him the gimmick of or it's not actually not a gimmick. It's like the magical weapon of a suitcase full of T-shirts with animal totems. So he has 12, each is a specific animal, and when he wears them, he has different powers and different weaknesses according to the animal. The stronger the T-shirt, the weaker the material. So there's like some interesting stuff, and it's kind of like being given a computer without a guidebook. So he doesn't know what these things can do. He doesn't know his own capacity as a hero. So it's, he's been thrown into a situation where he's out of his league, out of depth, and he has to figure out what to do. So I remember reading, I'm gonna drop the name Tony Robbins here, because I remember I read one of Tony Robbins' books, and he said, like, think about what you would do whether you made any money at it or not. And I was about 18 years old. I forget, it was one of his early books, I don't remember, but I was like, you know what? If, short of Armageddon, I think I just want to make comic books. That's all I want to do. So I was going to art school, having a lot of resistance from the professors. They're like, well, you can study Duchamp, you can study architecture, but you really want to make comic books? Like, you got to think about something serious. It's like, well, I mean, these might be made for kids, but they're made by adults. This is an honest profession. It's craft. It's conceptual, but not conceptual in a sense where it's just concept, and it doesn't need a manifesto. It can just be a comic book. So that was the thing that really, like, I mean, of course, at this point, by 18, 19 years old, you're pretty much a conscious adult, right? So that was a career choice. And before that, I loved, whether it's Jack Kirby or Mobius or whoever it is, like the world building that comics gives you, like you can really get into it, and it's a hermetic world where you can visit, almost like you can transport yourself to another place, and that was always attractive. Well, when I started self-publishing, I was 21. Yeah, 2021, and I was going to Ohio State, and we had 26 research libraries on the campus. So I did what every good student does. I went and did research. I read 2 or 3 books on how to self-publish. And it's like you can publish a cookbook and sell 1 million copies. The one I read was a how-to guide by a guy who published a manual on parasailing. This is how you sell 1 million books. This is how you reach distributors. This is what an ISBN number is. And my cost of living at the time, I think my apartment was $185. Like luxury would have been a baguette and a cup of coffee. So I had $10 a week to spend on comic books, and just kind of like, got into it that way. Within 2 years, luckily my stuff was selling well enough that I was able to continue to put the investments back into publishing. I worked at a print shop, so I did a lot of the pre-press on my own stuff. I learned a lot in the process, and I was going to school. So that's like, is humble beginnings, is what I would say. I mean, first of all, like, you can't care too much. Like, after 5 or 6 years in the business, you didn't care what people said about making comics because it was embarrassing, and do you make a living at that? That kind of thing. I do notice it's become more like respectable with like just what you would say civilians, like people who don't have any interest in comic books whatsoever. Like now it's kind of, oh, that's really cool, you do that for a living. Wow, it's really neat. On the car ride over, I had a long conversation with the driver about, Iron Man, and how he hated the Batman TV show, and he used to read X-Men, and just kind of, wow, this is crazy. This is like the future, like I live in a future where comics are respectable. So I guess there's that. That's kind of like, we stormed Normandy, we took France, but now we have to rebuild.